Hello and welcome back to Susie's Tech Corner. Today I've got a special guest star called Mattis, and I want to ask him some questions because imagine I'm starting out with TYPO3 development and want to start contributing. What do I need?
Well, first of all, you would need a TYPO3.org account. So, because basically all our systems evolve around that single account. If you want to set up an account, you would go to typo3.org, and on the upper right-hand-ish corner, you would see the login button, and there's a link to create a new account. So that's all very straightforward, nothing fancy, nothing incredibly new here.
Okay, and then I have my account, and what can I do with that?
With that account, you get access to forge.typo3.org, which is our issue tracking system.
Yeah.
So if we take a look at that,
Let's go to Forge.
here we go. The important thing to understand about Forge is that it's not only the issue tracker of the TYPO3 core, but it's also supplied as a community service so that you can use it for your own projects. Although, to be honest, I'd use something like GitHub or Bitbucket or set up my own GitLab server or use a hosted GitLab server at GitLab to do my issue tracking and all these kind of things. It takes load off the server team, and we highly recommend to do so. But you will find the TYPO3 core project if you go to the upper hand navigation on the left side and click CMS, and then you will find all the core projects. And obviously core is the topmost project. So if you click on that, this is the issue tracker for the TYPO3 core. There's a menu item called issues, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, here it is.
Exactly.
So if I have found a bug in TYPO3, I would report it here.
Yes, according to the regular bug reporting guidelines, which means please check if somebody else might have seen that bug before, so we don't get a lot of duplicates.
So if I want to check, I just use the search here.
You can use the search box, although this is all Redmine and the search is improvable.
Let's try this. I found a bug with workspaces.
That's unlikely.
So I get 795 results here, and what does that mean?
One way or another.
I guess this means they are already fixed, so...
Correct. So you'll be basically getting all the results.
Yeah.
You can drill down the search results in Forge, but that's not the... we have a different tool for that, but we'll get to that in a second. What I want to share is if you could create a ticket, please. There's one thing a lot of people tend to forget. Oftentimes we get screenshots. So you found a bug and you want to illustrate what's going on, so you add a screenshot. What few people know is that you can actually upload the screenshot and embed it directly into the ticket, which makes it a lot easier to read for other people taking a look at the ticket. So this would be my #1 tip. If you have a screenshot, and if it makes sense, please provide one, super helpful, embed it directly in the ticket text.
But how do I do that? I just uploaded the file here, and now I have to...
All right. So you have the file name right here.
Yeah.
You need to have that in your clipboard.
So I'm going to copy that, and
And what you can do then, there's a button up here for images, and you can edit, and you see that the syntax is basically exclamation mark, only the name of the file, exclamation mark again.
Okay.
And if you preview this, because on the lower bottom there's a preview button, you can then see that the image is, you don't need to scroll further than that, it's okay. It's okay. You can see that the image is now embedded in the text, and people can just scroll through it rather than clicking on the image, because Redmine will initiate a download of that image, so it won't be displayed inline in your browser. So this would be my personal pro tip, and everybody who's working with the issues is super thankful. Also, there's a lot of formatting options on top. Use them. That's super helpful to give structures to your tickets. It's easier for maintainers to understand what the issue is, and they can fix things faster.
What do you think will help for getting a fast bug fix?
Definitely provide a proper summary, or what Redmine calls subject. It should be expressive. Everybody should immediately be able to understand what the issue is about. So something like save doesn't work or improve X makes no sense whatsoever. And it's not that the core team doesn't want to fix those things, but most of the time, core developers that are in bug fixing mood, they basically just skim through the list and they look for something intriguing that they immediately understand what they can fix. It does not make sense to have a subject that works like clickbait. So not like 5 things you would never believe are broken. That won't help as well. But basically, be descriptive, be expressive in what's actually going on. Format the ticket accordingly. Ideally, provide steps how to reproduce the issue, and not just like, I created an extension and now my form doesn't work. Because there's a million reasons why this could be happening. So provide proper steps how to reproduce the issue. If the issue is extension related, some API call, provide a dummy extension, upload it into Forge. This is super helpful because a contributor, it's not necessarily someone from the core team, but any contributor can just take a look at the bug, download the dummy extension, install it, and immediately reproduce the error.
That sounds good. So you mentioned that there's another system for helping you search for issues.
Yeah. So that's Forger.
Forger, like Forge just with an R.
Exactly.
So.
And what Forger does is, first off, it shows you a lot of shiny graphs, which seem to have loading issues on this device. But what a lot of people kind of forget is that there's a big-ass search box on top. And this search box is powered by Elasticsearch. So it's not just a pure DOM MySQL search on SQL level, but this is like a proper search engine cluster. So if you go for workspaces, for example.
Send this again.
First of all, what you can see is that it searches only open issues by default, which we consider more helpful. On the left-hand side, you can filter down the available issues. So for example, you have the issue status, or what kind of a tracker it is. Tracker meaning it's a bug, it's a feature, it's a task. Story epics.
So most likely in this case, when I'm trying to find a bug report, I would go for bug here.
Correct.
And
then
probably see if my version is affected.
Correct.
And then I'd go and
you
filter.
Just drill it down, and it's super fast.
Yeah.
And there's a lot more information in these tickets. This is very helpful to just find tickets faster than on Forge directly. The other thing that Forge actually does is, if you take a look at the top, there are a couple more menu items to this. So if you go to reviews, for example, this is where all the reviews are located, and we'll be covering reviews in a minute. But we also have sprint boards, where you can see the next upcoming sprints and how fast or how far they are progressing right now. This is standard Kanban style that we just put on top of Forge in that regard. Another thing you might know is, or you might notice, is the utility thing where we have an RST helper for people who have issues with RST as a documentation language.
When do I need these kind of files?
Well, this is part of our workflow because the biggest issue that most open source projects have is documentation. And a few years ago, we decided that whenever there's a fix in the core, could be a feature, could be a bug fix, whatever, that has something worth documenting, it will not be merged unless there's documentation added for that. So what we have are these short documentation snippets that are merged together with the effective change. And this tool we built, I think it was Andy Fernandez that just built it in like a couple of days or minutes. just to have an easier way to set up these files so that they all look the same. So for example, if you click on deprecation, this would be the necessary blocks in the documentation for a deprecation information. So it's a description, it's the impact, it's which installations are affected, and the migration if it exists. A cool thing is that you can actually add a ticket number on top. So if you just go for some random ticket.
I'm searching for some random ticket, like 82528. 82528.
And you just click on the search icon. It will now actually get all that information from Forge and add it into your initial RST snippets. And there's a couple of code snippets left on the right-hand side, which makes things easier. So the most used syntax stuff, because RST is like Markdown, but it can do a lot more than that. So you basically got to learn some new accent of a documentation language, and we just figured that we will add some examples right here.
Okay, so let's go back for a minute. You have shown us the issue tracker, so now I have found a bug and I want to fix it. So what's my next step?
Well, the basic next step would be you take the issue from Forge and take a look whether it's still open, because you might see that on Forge a couple of tickets are under review. This means that there are already bug fixes available for that, and you can see those are the green ones. So if you just open up that ticket for a sec, and Forge likes us, you can see that on the bottom part in the history, Forge saw that there's a new review available on our reviewing system. So if you open that up, you can basically see this is our pull requests. We use Gerrit for that for a couple of reasons. The first thing is that we normally don't work in branches. So patches just apply to the master branch or specified older branches. And what Gerrit allows us is true collaboration, which is kind of hard in GitHub. So if I push a patch and I don't pursue it anymore, you can pick up exactly that patch without the need that I need to add you to the organization so you can work with it, or I don't need to give you permission to work on my fork on GitHub. You don't have to fork it yourself again. So that's a couple of benefits to Gerrit when compared to GitHub. GitHub has a couple of advantages itself, but we just decided to go for Gerrit as a code review tool. The important part to understand is that you need to set up your Git environment that it does not push against the original Git repository, but against Gerrit.
Okay, where would I find information about that?
That's in the documentation, and the guide is the contribution workflow guide.
So documentation is, I guess,
docs.
I guess I would use TYPO3.org and just click on documentation.
Exactly.
And then hopefully I get to docs.typo3.org.
Exactly. This is basically where all the documentation around TYPO3 is available. This is not only core documentation. This also includes extension documentation. So you can find the documentation of basically any extension at one place. Yep. That's how that works.
Yeah.
So what you can look for is the contribution workflow guide. And this is a step-by-step guide that will basically help you along every single step of making your first contribution. A lot of the information that we covered in this video is also contained in that guide. So a good idea is just to read through it. It'll take an hour and a half max. And it starts at the very beginning, creating your typo3.org account, reporting issues, how it works, how to set up your Git environment. We have appendices for it, for how to set it up on OS X, on Windows, on Linux, so that you can basically get all your information from this one contribution workflow guide. So that's super helpful.
Okay, so I've finished my contribution workflow guide, have my bug and fixed it locally and pushed it to the review system.
Correct.
Is there any place where I can announce that I have fixed that bug and I want to have reviews?
Well, you can tweet. You can write a blog post about it, but normally this is you want to get more instant feedback on these kind of things. So what we have is we have a Slack channel, which is TYPO3 CMS Core Dev. And this channel is open for everyone. You don't have to be a core developer to go into that channel. It's just where the entire core team is hanging around and trying to help people contribute.
So how do I get there?
You go to forger.typo3.org/Slack, or you go to the utility, there's the Slack invite, and you just hit your email, first name, last name, then confirm that you're not a robot, and you'll be getting an invite rather soon. Sometimes it takes a couple of minutes.
And then I have my account, and then I go to, I don't know, typo3.slack.com.
Correct.
And then I'm inside.
Correct. There's also native applications for OS X and Windows, and for Linux, I'm not sure, but I think so.
Yeah.
And there's the core development channel, and you can basically just type review:show your review number, and it will provide a proper link and the description to the review that you were just referring to.
Is that part of the workflow guide?
I don't know. If
Like,
not, we could. Is it?
Probably this one. At least there's something about
It's
Slack.
open source.
Yeah. Look, there's the
perfect.
review show thing.
Yep. And this will basically announce the review to the channel. Everybody can discuss it. One important thing to know is that in order to get your review approved and merged, there's a process of basically 6-eye principle. So given you have 2 eyes, you add your review to the system. That's the first pair of eyes. Then you need at least 2 people that said, I took a look at the code makes sense, and I actually tested the code, and I confirmed that it works as advertised. One of these 2 people needs to be a core team member, because they have special voting privileges. They can say, okay, this is a +2, and maybe we can show this because luckily you are a core team member. So Susie can basically set a +2 on code review and verify it, meaning we tested it, it works. And once a +2 is available and no negative scores are available, because sometimes it's not about pure functionality, sometimes it's about code style or architectural decisions. Do we want to do it this way? It works, but it's ugly. And in that case, if there is a negative vote on any of the patches information, we don't merge these things. We try to resolve those issues within the team, discuss stuff, add more patch sets on top of it. And this is where one of the main benefits of Gerrit kicks in, because you might push something, it does the job, it fixes the issue, totally fine, but I disagree on an architectural level. What I can do now, I can simply take your patch set and improve it and say, okay, I'd remove some stuff, and this is my architectural suggestion for that.
So instead of just complaining, you can actually improve it yourself, so
Correct.
to make it easier to show
Absolutely.
what you meant.
Yeah. And
That's
this
nice.
also often kicks in for simple things like you added a comment and there's a typo in it.
Yeah.
It happens to me all the time. And I think it's super helpful that if I do the review of the code, I can just fix that typo right away and don't have to spit in the contributor's face and go like, well, you added a typo. Yeah, okay, great. And now I
Thanks.
need to get back in that topic again. And there are reviews pending for weeks sometimes. So I don't really necessarily know what I did a few weeks ago. So I got to get into it again and try to find, okay, that was that, just to get the typo fixed. And this is why Gerrit is so powerful.
So is there anything that runs automatic tests or something like that, just to...
Yep, there is.
I'm
there's a couple of
guessing
things.
it's this one.
Exactly. So you can see at the very bottom, that this is the history of the patch set. And if you push something, we have our continuous integration server, Bamboo, who will actually run all the unit tests, all the functional tests, integration tests, acceptance tests, etc., automatically, and then apply votes whether it worked or not. The system behind this is rather huge. It's about 70 machines that actually work through these things. And normally it takes Bamboo about a couple of minutes. So 3 to 5 minutes is a normal time frame to run all these tests, and you get immediate feedback whether your test ran through or not. So before you advertise your patch, maybe wait like 5 minutes, and if Bamboo complains, don't advertise the patch because it's a negative vote and it won't be getting merged anyways.
So can I find out what Bamboo is complaining about?
Yes, of course. There's logs for anything. So now we need to find a negative vote somewhere.
Like this one. This was negative.
Yep. So there are links. You can just click them. And on Bamboo, there's the logs tab, which is pretty helpful. And you can basically see on the left-hand side, you see all the jobs that run through. So what we do in order to speed the functional tests up, for example, is that we split the functional tests up in, I don't know, like 10 or 12 or maybe even 20 different chunks. And the good thing is these run in parallel. So each chunk of, say, 20 tests runs on a different hardware machine, and this is why we can process the tests so fast, because normally if you let them run through on your own local machine, it'll take about 20 to 30 minutes.
On my local machine, actually more than an hour.
It happens.
So
Bamboo speeds these things up tremendously, and you can see each failed stage in there with the red icon, for example, and you can just click on it, and then you get the summary, all the logs, where you can actually see what was going on, what failed.
I can also click on tests here, so I just get the test that failed. And I actually can click on artifacts for the acceptance test stuff. And then I find...
There's a couple of screenshots, isn't there?
The whole acceptance test report, including a record of what it did as a slider. So I can...
That's new. I didn't know that.
This is just so we can actually see what's failing, because sometimes you want to see what the acceptance test was actually doing. Like there was an error.
Correct.
So.
And that's basically it, I guess. So we figured creating an account. We explained issue tracking. We explained where you can work with issues faster. We explained reviews. We explained where to find documentation. We explained where to run the tests, because they run automatically fast. One thing we did skip is how Forger works with reviews. So if we switch back to the Forger tab.
I don't have any Forger tab.
Doesn't matter, just create one. So if we go to the main menu and click on reviews, there's a couple of ways how you can drill and filter down reviews. So for example, you can have, if you're in a testing mood, you can filter down all reviews that do have +1s on coding style, but that miss verifications. So if you click on that, for example, you can now see that there are 38 tickets that have positive views on coding style, but nobody actually tested it. And on the left-hand side, again, you have filters. You can drill them down. What's helpful is just to select mergeable, just like you did now, so you don't need to rebase anyways. And what I personally like is the affected files filter, because now I can just say, okay, give me all reviews that just affect one single file. Or normally I do something like 1, 2, 3, or 4 files. That's like a good entry-level amount of files. On average, as a rule of thumb, you can say that the fewer files are affected, the less impact the change has. As with any rule, there are exceptions. So you might change just a single file, but the change is huge. That makes it hard to review. Or it might be just 2 characters that are changed, but the impact is massive. So don't necessarily confuse low affected files with an easy review. Most of the time it is. Sometimes it's not. When in doubt, go ask a core dev for help.
On
They'll
Slack.
help you out. On Slack, correct.
Yep.
Or
So-
call him up.
So I think that's enough for today. We've learned a lot,
Hopefully.
seen all the systems, and got a good overview. In one of the next sessions, I want to do a contribution entry-level video, so I can really show how to do the coding stuff for it.
So like really gritty, hands-on
Yep,
stuff.
yep.
Awesome.
Where I actually type code. And until then, hope to see you again, and comment if you liked it, and subscribe, of course. Bye-bye.
Bye.